Well, welcome back. It's still Journalist Hangout on TVC. Welcome to the show, and we're looking at some topical issues in the polity. This time around, we're looking at the concept of no work, no pay, and no pay, no work, which has pitched the federal government against some workers' union in Nigeria. In one of such cases, the National Industrial Court of Nigeria has upheld the no work, no pay rule by the federal government in the suit filed against the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU. In the judgment delivered by the president of the court, Justice Benedict Kanyip, the court held that the no work, no pay rule enforced by the federal government against members of the ASUU who went on strike in 2022 is perfectly legal. According to the court, it is within the rights of the federal government to withhold salary of workers who embark on industrial action. However, the court held that it is a violation of university autonomy for the federal government to impose the Integrated Payroll and Personnel Information System IPPIS platform on members of ASUU who reserve the right to determine how their salary should be paid. Interesting twist, interesting, but of course, it's something that we have to look at. First and foremost, BKO, let me start with you about this. What are the grounds on which the industrial court is giving the backing to the federal government that you have a right to determine if this worker is deserving of his pay or not?
I think that it's an unwritten rule that you have to earn your pay. What the industrial court has done now is to validate government's decision to not pay when a worker stays away from work in the name of industrial action. So this is a very significant judgment because government in the past will pay salaries, but
regardless of whether you work or not.
when they return, so salaries will be paid. But in the interest of industrial harmony, government can withhold your pay, and then when strike ends, because I'm sure that even labor would want to say, okay, we don't come back unless you agree to pay us our wages. We've seen that happen. Government will go ahead and say, okay, we are paying your wages for the period that you were on strike. It could be part of, it's sometimes part of the bargaining chip, part of the conditions, that they will fulfill. But for me, I see victory for ASUU in a way. This IPPIS thing that government decided to impose on the academic community, I on so many occasions on this program said, look, this thing cannot work. The university system, IPPIS cannot work in the university system. And they've also even shown clearly, as proof that it is also not foolproof. We have IPPIS, and an accountant general is able to steal tens of billions. What are we talking about? IPPIS that will pay you this salary today, next month it will be lower. There's no consistency. And people who are on sabbatical, you cannot, visiting professors, like even when we were in school, there were some professors that came from UK and all that to teach. You can't do that with the IPPIS in place because it has to be budgeted for before you can pay. So within the university system, there are some monies that you have to pay to people on the go. With IPPIS, you cannot. They have to capture your facials, capture your biometrics and all that. So you can't do that when people are coming for sabbatical, they want to come and stay for some time. No, you can't do that. And the university system thrives on visiting lecturers, sabbaticals and all that. You are trying to destroy the whole system. There's nowhere in the world where you have this kind of system. And they said, no, Don't do it. But they won't listen. And we have some people who will be telling them that, no, you can't tell your employer how to pay you your salary. Absolute rubbish. Now, I know somebody, who left ABU, went on sabbatical in the Nigerian university. I don't want to mention because they will know the person. 18 months, he didn't get paid. Now, they are thinking of recapturing his
metrics.
Yes, and then send, so that maybe from the 19th month, he can...
So what happened to the 18 months of
So
service?
this is part of the tyranny of IPPIS. And this IPPIS that was subjected to a test, and he failed. He failed. He didn't pass in flying colors. But you are insisting that it has to be IPPIS, that people are able to use to steal. So,
okay,
let me this is the thing. So they should accept that, okay, at least to an extent, you have something, you have victory in respect of IPPIS, which if they brush it aside, will put an end to this.
GKB, BQ has done well to look at it from both angles, both from the government side and from the ASUU side. But let's look at it. What will be the impact of this judgment on industrial action? We know that industrial action is perhaps one of the weapons that trade unions use to bring governments to the table for conversation or to demand for some of their benefits or rights. But now that they are being told that if you go on industrial action, your employer can decide not to pay you, what will be the impact of this on the short and long term?
In the short run, I know of some unions, especially the nurses in the UK and some other countries, they have a fund created solely for when you are going on strike. And you also make sure that the strike will work within that period. Because the strike is not meant to be professional.
It's not supposed to be 6 months now.
It's supposed to be just 3 weeks. Make your points, go back to work. Because you remember even in Lagos here, there was a time people somebody called out a strike. And the government was about to cave in at that point in time. But the governor went to the office and saw multitude of people. They were bored, sitting at home. They wanted to come back to work. So the purpose was defeated because it was getting too long.
Yeah, that's too long.
So most people just want to do it quickly, sharply, and then move on. So, but the ASUU case is peculiar because most of the strikes are based on on agreements made on earlier strikes that were not implemented. So sometimes it's about 10 years in the making. So because it behoves on them, okay, when is the line should be drawn? That's the problem. And that's why this judgment is fundamental. ASUU now, if they can work with this, they can generate their own income. I don't know the policy of the current administration when it comes to, I know they have a plan for student loans and all that. I don't know about the other ones, but whatever they decide, this judgment has given ASUU the leeway to create a system that works for its members. So now you can go, because whether we like it or not, sabbatical is a fundamental aspect of research.
Yeah.
In fact, there are universities that will not take you if not done sabbaticals in certain schools, in certain countries. If you are not published in certain papers, they will not give you a professorship because they just assume you are a backyard intellectual. So these things are fundamental. You have to go to certain schools, you have to go, because you will learn new stuff. For example, what Oxford and Cambridge or most schools in the UK are doing now, it was borrowed by a visiting professor who said, no, you cannot force students to learn. You must encourage them to learn. And today, everybody will tell you that the school even beg you, ask you to tell them when to be convenient for you to sit for your exam. So because they realize that forcing them to do it is not going to teach them anything. So ASUU can use this as a tool to create systems that work for their own system. Because like I said, it's peculiar because most of what they are fighting for are years in the making. They are not immediate problems. So if the new administration can simply solve the old problems, allow this judgment to go on, I'm sure in 2, 3, 4 years, cases of strike in that sector will be over.
Will be over, and of course.
I also think that the ASUU federal government impasse cannot be decided by a court of law.
No. That's what I said,
There is a need for the new administration to interface with ASUU and other academic unions and say, look, we want to, because Ashwaju said during one of his campaigns that ASUU strike will not happen during this time, that if you are supposed to be in school for 4 years, it will not exceed 4 years. So he has to meet with ASUU, find a way to solve this problem so that industrial harmony can reign during his administration. Because if we now begin to have ASUU strike and the rest, people will point to the fact that he made that promise. They will even bring the video.
Well, BK, well, let's hope that the new administration would make well its promise to ensure that the education sector does not witness a setback we saw in the last administration. Well, let's hit the home stretch.